everyone. This is Kim Coghill with ACA International in the Washington, D.C. office. ACA is the leading voice for the accounts receivable management industry. The content provided in this podcast is presented for educational and general reference purposes only. The content is not intended to serve as legal advice. Today's episode of ACA Cast features Michael Lamm, the managing partner at Corporate Advisory Solutions. And today we have along with us Alex Szeto, the producer of ACA Cast, who will engage with Michael and myself in this topic called Leadership Development Plans for Your Staff. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Michael.
So what I wanted to talk about today is something when you think about planning for 2020, this should be on your top of your checklist as managing or owning a debt collection business is to figure out if you already have either a review process or a plan on how you're going to be evaluating your staff going forward. You could call them individual development plans, leadership development plans.
Hey, Michael, this is Alex, the producer. What is the first step in creating a leadership development plan?
Your first step before even communicating with any of your staff is to develop your own schematic. Literally, you could go into a Word document and list out for certain positions like a mini outline, right? So, for example, if that person is a collections manager, but you feel like this person is a rock star, could be long-term and an amazing contributor to the organization, your first thing is to lay out what are the roles and responsibilities of that individual today, and what are the things that you want to develop them. What are the leadership development goals that you have for that position and for that person? It may be around communication. It may be around financial acumen. It may be around their problem-solving skills. Whatever those are, that's the first place to start in figuring out what you want that individual to improve upon.
What steps do you need to take forward in order to move along this plan? How do you create a plan to develop leadership in your company?
Basically, the framework is this. You want to be able to identify within your organization any of the rock stars, right? The leaders, the future leaders in your organization, and start developing an actionable plan. It really breaks down into the following categories. The first is you want to identify usually their top 3, top 5 strengths that they've got that are just, no doubt, this individual shows unbelievable, could be finance and accounting skills or problem-solving skills. And then on the other side, you want to be able to show in this document, call it the top 3 to top 5 weaknesses. I hate to use the word weakness, but more like development type needs that individual has. Everything from taking more of an active role in decision-making to getting more involved in certain aspects of training or helping with the development of other staff. There's a lot of things to think about when it comes to the development side of the equation. That's really where you're going to be focusing on with those future leaders in your organization. It's really great to just list these kinds of development needs or weaknesses that they have, but to figure out a plan to help them improve or attack a problem that may exist. Not only being able to identify it, but how it's going to get better, resolve it, whether that may be other type of cross-training or bringing in outside consultants to assist. I mean, there's a lot of different things that come into play when you start thinking about development needs or weaknesses of that individual. And the more candid conversation about those items is really where the improvement will take place, because it shows from an employer to an employee perspective that you care and you empathize and you want to see them grow in the organization. What sets apart really amazing companies that wow people on a regular basis, wow their staff and just the market overall. It's the fact that they're really engaging their staff to become better at what they do every day. And I think the key to that, and I think Kim and Alex, you would both agree on this, is that it's great to talk about it, but putting it down in writing and being able to have goals to achieve those developmental milestones will lead to positive and successful outcomes.
On these development plans, do you think that this is something that maybe the manager and staff member need to sit down quarterly and discuss rather than once a year? This is like an ongoing process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure every organization, or in the industry has a review process, and that's usually done annually. This is something that would complement that, but you can't just do it once a year. Doing it once a year, you're going to lose momentum, and there's going to be goals that are missed. The best way to track it is quarterly. Monthly is difficult because everyone just gets busy in terms of especially the first quarter, for example, with tax time. And I would tell you that quarterly should be a plan to kind of see how that individual is tracking toward this leadership development plan. Because if there is an issue, then you're going to solve it within that quarter and then pivot or change how you may look at that particular development need and go take a different approach.
As a manager, how do you get employees to buy into this leadership development plan? Do you have any strategies moving forward?
It's really sitting down and explaining that having this leadership development plan will help the person as an employee grow, but it'll also help the organization manage where they want to go with this particular position and role for that person in the organization. Because if there isn't any plan written down, and I'm not talking about a 10-page document here. This is basically a 1 or 2 pager Word document that kind of lays out these developmental milestones would be kind of the way to think of it and how they're going to get achieved.
So, Michael, can you talk a little bit about how you would deal with problems or weaknesses, how you would turn that around into positives, or either maybe finding new responsibilities or new duties for someone who's having certain issues? Maybe they're not going in the direction you wanted them to or that they wanted to go in.
It's never easy, right? When you have to be very candid with someone about their development needs in their mind, in the employee's mind, may be very different, hopefully not, than what they believe the situation is. The goal is to have that interaction and conversation. This is not something you do over email or text or anything like that. This is face-to-face over a lunch. You get them out of the office, and you really talk about the importance of continuing to help them grow in the organization. They will then be much more receptive to hearing the feedback or constructive criticism, because they're going to then start thinking about, look, maybe this is an issue. And an example would be, a lot of folks that are future leaders in organizations, maybe they're an introvert. Maybe they are very good at understanding kind of strategically where things are going month over month, quarter over quarter. They lack the communication, or they lack the ability, or they just don't have enough confidence yet to really speak to those things. They internalize a lot of it. As a leader in an organization, the people around them have to bring out those attributes to get motivation and interest in completing tasks. That is one way of doing it. It's got to be a face-to-face interaction to pull out these types of development needs and make a plan to help improve upon them in a constructive way.
And also to that point, so let's say that you are the manager or owner of a smaller company and you don't necessarily have a career path for younger, let's say, staff members. At what point do you sit down with a staff member who's got a promising future and say, maybe you need to look elsewhere, or your next step needs to be a job with XYZ type of agency?
Most of the members of ACA are, 10 to 15 people, but they've got stars in their organizations that they're trying to figure out, is this a long-term person, or is this a person that's going to be transient and jump from job to job to job? Identifying them and cultivating that is much more of an art than a science. When you talk to owners, they know if a person is going to fit inside the culture and plan with their organization. I think everything when it comes to these kind of leadership development plans for smaller companies or smaller agencies, it needs to be developed in a way that fits the organizational map, what they're doing. Because they're 10 or 15 people or 5 people, putting together a plan is hard to do. The company is ever changing. They're moving, they're doing, every month is different because that individual may have 10 or 15 roles and responsibilities in the organization. So there's only so much leadership development that can come from a plan like this. However, if you are able to identify a couple of the key items, you've at least got a starting point to maybe continue to develop and cultivate that manager into even a bigger success story in your organization. It's always going to be an issue for smaller companies to figure that out and do it quickly, because they may find after having somebody in a role for 5 years that they're really not going to be able to go up to the next level. And it took a couple of years, or sometimes it's a laziness factor where you just get so used to something or someone that you don't want to rock the apple cart, because then you have to start over and find somebody new. For a small company, that could be very detrimental, especially when we're dealing with unemployment at 3.5% to 4%, an all-time low. It's hard to find good people out there that are committed to organizations like this.
So you have a leadership plan developed and your employees are buying into this plan. What are the next steps? Can you talk more about getting feedback from your employees?
Oh, it's paramount. I mean, you've got to be, as a leader in an organization where you want to groom other people in the organization, you've got to be talking and hearing about what their issues or concerns are. This leadership development plan is going to bring out some of those issues or concerns, or sometimes what ends up happening is people feel like they could be developed into leaders in the organization, but frankly, their day jobs and all the things that they're doing regularly, they don't have enough resources to really do what they can do. And we see that a lot, especially with the smaller companies. Their roles and responsibilities it could be pages long. And so figuring out ways to dedicate them to grow and mature in their positions becomes an issue because of lack of resources to do it.
That's really good information. So, Alex or Michael, any other closing thoughts before we sign off here?
Yeah, well, this is Michael. The only thing I would say, Kim, is don't wait till December 23rd or 24th when people are about to head off for the holidays with their family to develop this. If you start now, you've got plenty of time to lay out these leadership development plans for some of your core staff that are up-and-coming rock stars in your organizations. And the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to start to see results of this development plan in action day in and day out.
Okay, that's fantastic information. So we truly appreciate you for taking time. And then Alex Szeto joined us today. He is our producer. So before we close, I'd like to remind everyone that news and information related to the accounts receivable management industry is covered extensively in Collector Magazine and in ACA's daily electronic newsletter, which are both available on our website at www.acainternational.org. This podcast and ACA's other podcasts are available on our website or wherever you normally listen to podcasts. Thank you and have a great day.